So the stars are coming out for Kamala Harris. Pop superstar Beyonce will appear with the vice president at her event in Houston tonight, and she's also expected to perform. Beyonce is from Houston, and it comes as Harris has welcomed other musicians on the campaign trail, including Bruce Springsteen and Eminem.
So
two more.
Why this is important, and this is the strategy behind having a Beyonce at a rally or an Eminem at a rally, aside from just, having celebrities at rallies. What it does is it draws a lot of attention to that event, and then in that coverage for the event, part of your message will get through, and the message for this event in Texas is going to be abortion. So having Beyonce there, now I think people would have paid attention to Vice President Kamala Harris in Texas regardless, because Democratic presidential candidates don't spend a lot of time there. But having Beyonce there too, that just adds to the coverage it's going to get. So that's the strategy behind all of this. And it's important for Harris to make some news in Texas with her rally and to stay in the news cycle, because former President Donald Trump is sitting down with Joe Rogan today, and that's really going to be a newsmaker. So,
Yeah, but the video of Beyonce and Harris will be way better for TV.
Well, the video of Beyonce in particular.
Exactly.
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, but the conversation between Trump and Joe Rogan is
Could
going to
be
be
interesting.
way more interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
it's an interesting move, because a lot of people are like, why on earth would she go to Texas? Because she has no chance of winning that state. I mean, the polls show her way out of reach, right? But at the same time, it's the abortion issue. Texas has one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the nation. And it's also to help out the Senate candidate there, who's within reach of Ted Cruz, probably not going to win, but it's close. And also, it's Harris County. So why not go there? And it's also the most Democratic county in the state of Texas.
Well, and I think it creates a headline that she's going to Texas, just like former President Donald Trump on Sunday. He's going to be at Madison Square Garden. That's going to get a lot of attention. And look, with time running out, 11 days left, it's all about the time that candidates are spending doing different things and who's winning each news cycle. That's what we're down to here. So these are all very strategic moves. Yes,
you know Trump always wanted to play at the Garden.
Always.
He wanted
Always.
that. He's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
This is his moment.
Yeah. You're going to have the Garden filled with MAGA supporters. The scene that is going to be.
The crowd is going to be huge.
The crowd, and then the biggest ever, Dana, ever at Madison Square Garden. Nobody's ever seen a crowd like
in
this at Madison Square Garden. But that's going to be a major news story on Sunday. So I'll be interested to see, does Harris try to do any kind of counter programming over the weekend, or Sunday, to try to, weasel her way into the news cycle and the headlines, because it's going to be all about Trump Sunday night. So that's kind of the strategy behind some of this stuff. You've got to be careful how much you're associating with celebrities, because that can be a turnoff to some voters too. But yesterday, I know Bruce Springsteen, he was the one that a lot of people focused on, but it was really Samuel L. Jackson who spoke in Georgia at the Harris-Obama rally. And I talked about this earlier. There's a poll that was done recently of, all these different celebrities and well-known figures and their approval ratings. And Samuel L. Jackson had the highest approval rating of all of them.
Did he have his Capital One card?
Yeah, I thought after he made his little speech about Harris, I thought he was going to go right into a commercial there.
Exactly.
But yeah, Samuel L. Jackson topped the list. So maybe they knew what they were doing there, having him as part of that event.
Speaking of big headlines, Lyle and Eric Menendez will be resentenced after spending more than 30 years behind bars for the grisly 1989 shotgun murders of their parents. It's a case that's captivated the nation, and it even spawned a popular Netflix series decades later. The L.A. District Attorney, George Gascon, announced that the brothers will be resentenced. There were 300 journalists at his news conference because of the interest in this story, and they were from around the world.
And him running for re-election had nothing to do with all of this.
Maybe so.
Talk about free earned media and winning a news cycle.
Yeah. Well, he's going to recommend to the court that the killer siblings be eligible for parole. The final decision will be left to a judge, but the men, now in their 50s, had paid their debt to society, according to Gascon, and he believes that they should be freed.
Now, one of the problems, just on the politics side, and then we'll get to the case itself, for Gascon, the district attorney, he's down by like 30 points because people feel he's too weak on crime.
Oh, geez.
And so
then letting these two out.
I don't know if that's really going to help him. He's certainly gotten a lot of attention lately. But this is polarizing. We've been talking about this all morning. I'm not in favor of letting them get out. I mean, I just think the premeditation. I don't doubt the sexual abuse allegations. But they were also older at the time where they could have gotten out of that situation. And I also think that the money certainly played a role. The inheritance, that seemed to be a big part of the calculus. This was not just somebody who was abused and they were defending themselves or something like that. This was much more than that. But Dana thinks that they should be released.
Yeah, I think that they deserve a second chance. They were really young when this happened. They suffered insane abuse. And I actually haven't watched the Netflix documentary yet, but I'm going to watch it this weekend because I think a lot more of what they went through is shown. Obviously, what they did was awful, so they should have been punished. But they've paid their debt. They've been in prison for 34 years, and they've been model prisoners who have really done a lot to help other prisoners and to be good people.
No, you're right about that. I think if it was just the dad who they killed, then maybe I'm more sympathetic to it. But how they killed the mom, shooting her, then she's still alive, crawling, and then they go get more ammunition and then blow her away.
Yeah, I mean, the abuse story is obviously terrible, but two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't give you the right to kill people. I think there was a lot of animosity towards these guys, obviously, at the time that they were sentenced. I mean, they just looked like these, rich kids trying to cash in on their parents' success.
Yep.
They had the preppy sweaters on. I mean, they didn't do themselves any favors in how they appeared. But times definitely have changed. I just think it's a stretch to allow people involved with this kind of a crime for this.
Premeditated, too.
I mean,
not like it was just in the heat of the moment or anything like that. I mean, the lengths they went to not only try to pull this off, but then to get away with it.
Can you imagine that here in Florida? They would do something like that.
I think there were a lot of members of the family who want to see them get out too, which
I think it's only
that tells you something about the dynamic going on. And these family members, they knew what was happening in that home, and so for the family to say they should be released, given what happened, I think that says a lot.
I think it's only the mother's brother who doesn't want them out. Most of the rest of the family, you're right, they're on board with this. So
we'll see what the judge does. So it's not just McDonald's concerned about these onions on food. Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut restaurants at certain locations are also, out of an abundance of caution, not using onions on any of their orders.
And nobody will miss that one bit. Onions, they're not necessary.
Bought onions to make some chicken noodle soup this weekend, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to bother cooking. I'm going to throw the onions away.
You like the onions, right? You're an onion fan.
I love onions. Although, you know what? It was pointed out to me that I was mistaken about the onions on McDonald's burgers.
Yes, we got, trust me, Chris, we had to do a correction immediately after that segment yesterday where I was wondering how come they're just pulling the quarter pounder and not the other burgers that have onions on it. They're different onions used for that particular burger.
The ones on the quarter pounder are the slivered onions, and they come from a different shipping, and they're just a different product, basically. And so those are the ones in question here, and that's why they only pulled the quarter pounder. It wasn't because of an imaging thing or anything like that. It's because that's where the onions are served.
Yeah, no, our listeners let that know, within seconds of us making that mistake. They were all over us, Chris.
Yeah, further proof I did not work at McDonald's, and I didn't know that.
Neither did Kamala Harris.
All right. On that note, Chris Strankman with today's top stories. Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.